Have you ever seen like the numbers of people that are working in chocolate, that are working in like horrible conditions?
Mm-mm.
Have you ever heard of this? Jamie, find out about chocolate. Someone was telling me that chocolate, in many ways, I have to be careful about this because I'm not sure if they're right. Let's look up what it is. But they were connecting, we were talking about cobalt mines. And they said, have you ever looked into chocolate and chocolate production? It's like, here it is. Mars Wrigley factory fined after 2 workers fall into chocolate vat. Well, that's not it. I think they're talking about cacao farming. And that I think he was insinuating that they used slave labor at some of those places.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that's the, God, who was I talking to, man? God damn it, I have such a soggy brain. Oh, man, they were talking about how they...
Child labor and slavery in the chocolate industry. This is it. Jesus Christ. Okay, can you make that larger for my shitty eyes? Chocolate is a product of the cacao bean, which grows primarily in the tropical climates of Western Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The cacao bean is more commonly referred to as cocoa. So that is the term that will be used throughout this article. Western African countries, mostly Ghana and the Ivory Coast, supply about 70% of the world's cocoa. Is it coca or cocoa? How do you say that?
I don't know.
Because I always say cocoa, like
I don't
hot
know.
cocoa.
Cacao?
Cacao,
This shitty, healthy
COCOA, but it's not cacao because the cacao bean, and then it's coca.
Cocoa.
Okay. The coca they grow, sorry everybody, chocolate they grow and harvest is sold to a majority of chocolate companies, including the largest in the world. In the past few decades, a handful of organizations and journalists have exposed the widespread use of child labor and in some cases slavery on coca farms in Western Africa. Child labor has been found on coca farms in Cameroon, Guinea, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, although since most of Western Africa is coca grown in Ghana and the Ivory Coast, the majority of child labor cases have been documented in those 2 countries.
Fuck.
Yeah.
You don't, like,
It says Brazil, too. Scroll up a little bit.
You just don't think that, do you?
No.
When you're eating a Kit Kat.
In recent years, evidence has also surfaced of both child labor and slavery on coca farms in Brazil. Coca workers there face many of the same abuses as those on coca farms in Western Africa. Fuck. And then Latin America, too, they're saying.
$1 per day.
Jesus Christ.
$1 per day. A Kit Kat's 4 days work.
Isn't it crazy that chocolate is like love and there's like chocolate stores, come in and buy chocolate. Like
Valentine's
if you walk
Day.
by a chocolate store, you never say, oh, child labor.
Oh, yeah. A lot of kids died for that fucking chocolate you're giving for your...
A lot of little tiny unformed bodies are being forced to dig holes in the ground.
Dig holes, just getting
Carry
sick,
shit.
getting malaria.
Ugh.
Yeah, this oh God, I'm sorry whoever told me this. They went on a tour of the Colosseums in Italy, and the person giving the tour was talking about how, the horrible shit the Romans used to do in the Colosseums, it was just pure brutality. And the guide says, but it's just as brutal now, but in a different way. And that's what she's talking about. It's like, yeah, we don't have Colosseums where we're like throwing Christians to lions and laughing as they get eaten by a lion. But we, most things that you are indulging in is just something fun, a little bit of chocolate, your fucking iPhones, the cobalt, whatever it is just soaked in misery and violence and suffering. Like the whole thing still is interconnected. Yeah. I mean, now that being said, what are you supposed to do about that? Are you gonna stop eating chocolate or using your phone?
Well, that's what's crazy. It's like they've got us addicted. Particularly, well, chocolate would be an easier one, but phones. We are all willingly addicted to these things. We are all checking our email and posting stuff and, using it for our podcasts and you're using it. It's a device. It's important. You have to have it.
You have to have it.
But it's all connected to cobalt mining, which is one of the most horrific things that's happening right now on planet Earth. And if people in the cities in America were forced to live like that, everyone would be up in arms. But yet people are tweeting about letting people through the border crisis. We have this border problem. We need to help these people. They're tweeting it on a phone made by slaves.
Yeah.
Which is the wildest thing ever.
It's very odd. It's very odd.
And rarely discussed.
It's called, so it's ignorance. And like this is in Buddhism, there's three, like the root of suffering. One of them is ignorance. And ignorance is not like you're ignorant, you're a dumbass. It's like you're actively ignoring shit. Like, you know, this is one of the nightmare weed situations, is when you've been ignoring some shit in your life. And even though you know it's there, you've just been ignoring it. And then you get high. And it's like, you can't, I'm not going to let you ignore this for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you have the bad weed trip, because now suddenly you're like looking at a relationship that is shitty in your life that needs to improve, or you're looking at like how you don't exercise or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
So you've been actively ignoring that and thinking that is going to make the situation better, even though when you're actively ignoring something, you feel it.
Yeah.
And you might not, might not be at the top of mind, but you're like feeling it, and it's heavy. It's a heavy thing when you're procrastinating. That's active ignorance. So I think collectively, that's what we're doing here, is this active ignorance of the reality that these things don't pop out of thin air.
Yeah.
That if we're going to have this level of luxury, some people are going to have to suffer for it.
But that's not necessarily true. They don't have to. They just are. It's not like you couldn't figure out a way where the company profits slightly less, the people live far better, and phones cost reasonably close to what they cost to now.
You
The problem, those, like, you look at a company like Apple, just the amount of money that they've generated from devices, and what percentage of it is phones? What percentage of what they sell involves cobalt? I mean, most of their lithium-ion battery products, cobalt is like some sort of a stabilizer or something.
no idea.
Siddharth Kara, who wrote that book on cobalt, who came on the podcast and had this, it was one of the most heavy podcasts I've ever done, because you're sitting here and he's exposing how these people are living, how these 19-year-old mothers have babies on their backs and they're digging into these hills to get cobalt, and the dust is coming up, and it's horrific for them. Terrible health consequences. They're being poisoned, and they're making no money, and they have no electricity.
Yeah, and don't forget that those cobalt mines are not even owned by Africans. They're usually owned by like
Chinese.
Chinese.
Yeah.